Dear ladies and gentlemen, Andreas, it may already sound like a cliché, and the sentence said by Edward Gray has been so often quoted that it starts somehow to get boring, but I do it anyway because there is no sentence which would better elaborate the big line that could be drawn between the outbreak of the First World War and the fall of the Iron Curtain, the fall of the wall, and later the reunification. The former Minister for Foreign Affairs in Great Britain wrote in his memoirs, "We were standing at the window of my room in the Foreign Office. It was getting dusk and the lamps were being lit in the space below on which we were looking. My friend recalls that I remarked on this with the words," and now comes the famous quote, "The lamps are going out all over Europe. We shall not see them lit again in our lifetime." You might know this very famous quote said by Edward Gray. I'm not aware if the organizers of the 25th anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall did have this particular and world-famous quote in mind when they invented the beautiful idea to mark the cause of the Berlin Wall with thousands of white balloons with lamps in it, which did fly in the night at the exact moment the wall came down 25 years ago. But I am sure, if you allow me this little speculation, that he, Edward Gray, would have been pleased by the thought that the lamps are lit again, making the very fact clear that he was right concerning his own lifetime, but of course wrong in the end with his prophecy. We want not only to commemorate with this event what could be, in the truest sense of the word, called the happy end of a very ambivalent, very problematic century, the century of the totalitarian devils, the century of ideologies like fascism, Bolshevism, the century of organized mass murder, the century of weapons of mass destruction, the century of the nuclear balance of terror in the world for more than 40 years. This century was not simply dark, it brought to life marvelous inventions. Take as an example, as an ambivalent example, geniuses like the famous German Jewish chemist and Nobel Prize bearer Fritz Haber, who invented in this century deadly chemical weapons, who invented, of course, without knowing what would be done with it, the terrible gas Cyclone B that killed millions of innocent men, women, and children, but in the same time invented methods of synthesizing ammonia. The food production for half the world's current population depends on this method for producing fertilizer, and thus saves hundreds of millions' lives until this very day. Fritz Haber stands exemplary for the hopes, but also for the catastrophes of this century. We know that the fall of the Berlin Wall did not mark the end of history, like Francis Fukuyama was alleged to have put it. If you really take a look at this outstanding article in Foreign Affairs, you will find out that this often discussed contribution is pointing somehow out that the end of the Cold War is, of course, not the end of ideologies, but that the West and that its liberalism, its way of living, did succeed in the end, whereas socialism more or less died. Of course, this statement is very disputable. We might discuss that later on. Does the fact that we face the threat of ISIS, again a dehumanizing force, not prove Fukuyama wrong to a certain extent? Is not the renaissance of religious thinking in a lot of parts of the world again a source of fierce conflict? Or will that, in contrary, prevent political ideologies to play such a dominant role again? Historians are not the species who would take a deep look in the crystal ball. That's not their profession. But I think it is interesting to ask the question, what do we really know about this place, sitting here in Janogli Hall, in 100 years? What might happen? What will be here? Nothing? That was what you said. But I mean, if we now go 100 years backwards, what would those might have thought about the future who witnessed the assassination of Franz Ferdinand in Sarajevo 100 years ago? Is there really something like the ability to learn from history and to prevent such horrible deeds in places like concentration camps, like mass murder? Will the prediction be true that the future cause of war will be the lack of access to vital resources like water and energy? What can we actually really learn from history? This, ladies and gentlemen, is the wonderful and pleasant role of the opener. He is a very lucky man because he can easily raise complex questions and knows in the same time that he is not the one who is forced to answer these questions.
Excellent.
So I'm pretty much aware of the fact that we have more competent speakers for that part. And this brings me especially to one person. I have the honor and the joy to welcome one of the most outstanding, if not one of the leading young historians in Germany. I hope he will spend me a beer for the young historians.
Indeed.
We are pretty much the same age, so I can do some kind of these weird jokes. I welcome the member of the board of Konrad-Adenauer-Stiftung, and I would also say my friend Andreas Röder. I'm very happy that you are here. I do not want to consume all our precious time by elaborating on his impressive curriculum vitae, and I will leave that, of course, to you, David. But I would just pick up on one point or 2 points which might interest you. Before taking over the chair for history as a professor at the University in Mainz, Andreas Röder has been a visiting professor at the Brandeis University in Boston, which could, to a certain extent, be regarded as a Jewish university in Boston, Massachusetts. A warm welcome, of course, not only to Andreas Röder, but also to our other speakers. We, as the Adenauer-Stiftung, are very pleased that Dr. Guy Beiner is with us and speaking to us. We are also happy that Aaron Sebak is here. A round table without a moderator is comparably useless. So let me also extend a warm welcome to the Dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences and Humanities at the Ben-Gurion University. Moderators are normally not introduced, and I think that is a mistake. So I introduce you and I extend a warm welcome to you. Thank you for being here. Let me also convey my gratitude to my friend Sharon Pardo. Where is he? There he is. For doing this together with us again. It is already some kind of history, but it is just 1 week ago that we, the Ben-Gurion University and the Konrad-Adenauer-Stiftung, signed a memorandum of understanding, which puts upon us the obligation to even intensify our friendship and partnership, and we are very happy to do so. So thank you again for your support and for the good cooperation we have. Let me end by quoting the first Chancellor of the Federal Republic of Germany, because I risk to be fired as the director of the Konrad-Adenauer-Stiftung if I do not at least once quote this great man. And this is comparatively easy because he really has a lot of interesting and a lot of very suitable quotes. He said, one needs to know the yesterday, one even has to think about the yesterday in order to build up the tomorrow in a good and sustainable way. Let us think about the yesterday to build up a peaceful future, a peaceful tomorrow, here in the Holy Land, in Europe, and wherever it is needed. I wish all of us a very interesting evening.